Dr. Sarah Chen sat bolt upright in her chair as the monitoring system beeped for the third time that night. Working the night shift at Earth's Deep Space Listening Post wasn't usually this exciting. Her dark eyes narrowed at the strange pattern pulsing across her holoscreen. "This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting her glasses. The signal was unlike anything in their database, not random enough to be natural space noise, but not following any known artificial patterns either. The clock on the wall showed 3:27 a.m. Earth Standard Time. Sarah's fingers flew across the holographic keyboard, running every analysis protocol she knew. After 20 minutes of intense work, she sat back, her heart racing. This was definitely a distress signal, but its structure was completely alien. She reached for the communications panel, hesitated for just a moment, then pressed the emergency contact button. Within minutes, the previously quiet monitoring station hummed with activity as other scientists rushed in, their footsteps echoing through the metallic corridors. "Dr. Chen, what have you found?" Director Matthews asked, his usually neat gray hair disheveled from being woken up so early. Sarah pulled up the signal pattern on the main display. "It's a distress beacon, sir, but the encoding. I've never seen anything like it. It's not using any known galactic standard frequencies." The room fell silent as the pattern danced across the screen. A series of pulses, each one carrying layers of information that seemed to defy conventional communication methods. Over the next few hours, Sarah and her team worked tirelessly to decode the message. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting long shadows through the station's windows, they finally began to make sense of it. "It's from a species calling themselves the Nexari," Sarah explained to the growing crowd of scientists and officials. "Their star is dying, but not in any normal way. The decay pattern is all wrong." She pulled up another screen showing the astronomical data. "They're reaching out to anyone who can help them evacuate their population. According to these readings, they have less than 6 months before their star becomes completely unstable." Just then, a notification popped up on the main screen. The Galactic Council's public channels were buzzing with activity. Sarah's translator program quickly converted the various alien languages into English. "Look at this," she said, her voice growing tense. "Other civilizations have already picked up the signal. But they're all agreeing to ignore it." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 30 years ago, but they had never seen such a unified response to ignore a distress call. Sarah dug deeper into the Council's archives, her determination growing with each passing minute. As she pieced together fragments of information, her eyes widened. "The Nexari," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They carry a unique genetic marker in their DNA. Something about it. It's making the advanced civilizations nervous." Director Matthews leaned forward. "Nervous how?" "According to these records, the Nexari's genetic structure could potentially destabilize the biotechnology that most advanced civilizations rely on." Sarah's fingers trembled slightly as she brought up more data. "The other species, they're afraid. They're actually willing to let an entire civilization die because of what they might do to their technology." The morning sun now filled the room completely, casting long shadows across the worried faces of Earth's top scientists. Sarah looked at the signal, still pulsing steadily on her screen. Somewhere out there, an entire species was watching their star die, sending desperate pleas for help into the void. And one by one, the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy were turning their backs on them. Sarah clenched her fists. Humanity had been in space for less than a century, but they had already seen enough to know this wasn't right. As she prepared her preliminary report for Earth's United Council, she knew this discovery would force humanity to make a choice, one that would either validate their place in the galactic community or set them against the most powerful civilizations in known space. The main chamber of Earth's United Council had never been so crowded. Representatives from every nation sat in tense silence as Dr. Sarah Chen presented her findings. The holographic displays showed the dying star, its unstable core pulsing with dangerous energy. "The Nexeri," Sarah explained, her voice steady despite her nervousness, "are silicon-based life forms. Their biology is completely different from anything we've encountered before." A council member from India raised her hand. "And you're certain about the timeline? 6 months until their star collapses." "Yes, Madam Representative. But there's something else." Sarah brought up new data. "The star's decay pattern isn't natural. Someone or something is causing this." The room erupted in whispers. Sarah waited for them to quiet down before continuing. "We've also received this." She played a message from the Galactic Council. The stern face of a Xanthan diplomat, with their characteristic blue scales, filled the screen. "Humans," the translator conveyed the alien's words, "your species is young. You don't understand the complexities of galactic politics. Help the Nexeri, and you will face severe consequences. All trade routes to Earth will be closed. Your colonies will be isolated. This is your only warning." The council chamber burst into argument. Some demanded immediate action to help the Nexeri, while others warned about the risks of defying the Galactic Council. In the midst of the chaos, an elderly Japanese councilman stood up. The room fell silent as they recognized Professor Hiroshi Tanaka, who had survived Earth's last great refugee crisis 50 years ago. "In 2157, he began, his voice soft but clear, millions died in the Venezuelan climate collapse because wealthy nations refused to open their borders. I was there. I watched families turned away at checkpoints. We said we didn't have enough resources. We said it would destabilize our economies." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We were wrong." Sarah noticed several council members looking down at their hands, shame evident on their faces. "Now we face the same choice on a galactic scale," Tanaka continued. "But this time, we can be better. We must be better." The council president, a tall woman from Kenya, stood up. "Dr. Chen, what would it take to save the Nexeri?" Sarah brought up new diagrams. "We have the colony ship Mercy. It was designed for human colonists, but we can modify its life support systems for silicon-based life forms. The engineering team says it would take 3 weeks. And how many Nexeri are there?" "Approximately 1 million. The Mercy can hold them all, but it would be crowded." More discussions broke out. The economic advisor warned about trade sanctions. The military commander worried about defensive capabilities against advanced alien ships. The ethics committee argued about the moral obligation to help. As the debate continued, Sarah received an urgent message on her tablet. Her hands shook as she read it. "Council members," she interrupted, her voice trembling slightly. "I've just received new data about the Nexeri. They're not just running from a dying star. They're protecting something. Something that could change everything we know about consciousness and artificial intelligence." She displayed the new information, showing strange energy patterns from the Nexeri homeworld. "This might be why the other civilizations want them gone. They're afraid of what the Nexeri know." The room fell silent again. The council president looked around at the assembled representatives of humanity. "We will now vote. The choice before us is simple, but the consequences are not. Do we help the Nexeri, knowing it will turn the galactic community against us, or do we stand aside and let history repeat itself?" One by one, the council members cast their votes. Sarah held her breath as the numbers appeared on the main screen. The council president's voice rang out clear and firm. "The vote is 157 to 43 in favor of intervention. Humanity will help the Nexeri." As soon as the words were spoken, alerts flashed across every screen in the chamber. The Galactic Council had already responded. Trade sanctions would begin immediately. Earth's colonies would be cut off from alien trade routes. They would be alone. But in that moment, as Sarah looked at the determined faces around her, she realized that being alone didn't mean being wrong. Humanity had made its choice. Now they would face the consequences together. Captain David Okafor stood at the bridge of the colony ship Mercy, watching as Earth grew smaller in the viewing screen. The massive ship hummed with the energy of its newly modified engines, designed to carry them across vast distances of space in record time. Sarah Chen worked at a console nearby, monitoring the silicon-based life support systems they had installed for the Nexari. The past 3 weeks had been a blur of modifications, preparations, and countless system checks. Life support is stable, Sarah reported, her tired eyes fixed on the readings. The silicon atmosphere processors are working better than expected. David nodded, his dark features tight with concentration. He touched the small pendant around his neck, a reminder of the family he'd lost in the Venezuelan crisis. How long until we reach the Nexari system? 42 days if we maintain current speed, Sarah answered. She paused, frowning at her screen. Captain, I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors. David moved to her station, his military training evident in his swift, precise movements. Show me. The screen displayed 3 faint signatures trailing behind the Mercy. They were trying to stay hidden, but the ship's advanced sensors could detect their energy signatures. 3 ships, David announced to the bridge crew. 1 Zenthan, 1 Proxian, and 1. I've never seen that configuration before. The communications officer, Lieutenant Maria Santos, suddenly straightened in her chair. Captain, we're receiving an encrypted transmission. It's using old Earth protocols, something that hasn't been used in decades. Put it through to my private channel, David ordered. The message was brief but clear. The Nexari are not what they seem. Turn back now. What they protect will destroy everything. David shared the message with Sarah, who had become their unofficial Nexari expert. She shook her head in frustration. They're still trying to stop us, but they won't tell us the real reason why. As they pushed deeper into space, more ships appeared on their sensors. They kept their distance but followed persistently, like wolves stalking prey. A week into their journey, Sarah made a breakthrough with the Nexari signal translations. She burst onto the bridge, her usual calm demeanor shattered by excitement. Captain, I've decoded more of their original message, she said, quickly pulling up the data. The Nexari weren't just sending a distress signal. They were sending a warning. Something about their star's collapse being just the beginning. Before she could explain further, alarms blared across the bridge. Lieutenant Santos' hands flew across her console, multiple ships decloaking, their charging weapons. David's military training kicked in instantly. Battle stations. All hands prepare for emergency maneuvers. Engineering. Divert power to shields. The Mercy shuddered as the first warning shots passed close to their hull. The pursuing ships had finally made their move. They're not trying to destroy us, Sarah observed, studying the attack pattern. They're trying to disable our engines. They want us to stop. David gripped his command chair as another blast rocked the ship. Well, they're going to be disappointed. Lieutenant Santos, send an emergency signal to Earth. Tell them we're under attack. But before Santos could send the message, something extraordinary happened. The space around them lit up with dozens of new signatures. Ships were appearing out of hyperspace. Earth ships. Message from the fleet commander, Santos announced, relief evident in her voice. They say, "Did you think we'd let you face this alone?" The Earth fleet moved into defensive positions around the Mercy, their weapons charged and ready. The pursuing alien ships pulled back, clearly surprised by humanity's show of force. David allowed himself a small smile. Send a message to all ships, Earth and alien alike. Tell them the Mercy will continue its mission. Anyone who fires on us will face the full response of Earth's fleet. As the standoff continued in the depths of space, Sarah returned to studying the Nexari's warning message. Whatever secret the silicon-based species protected, whatever truth made the advanced civilizations fear them so much, they would find out soon enough. The Mercy continued its journey toward the dying star, now protected by a shield of Earth ships, while behind them, more alien vessels gathered like storm clouds on the horizon. The Mercy dropped out of hyperspace near the Nexari homeworld, and the bridge crew gasped at the sight before them. The star was a sickly purple color, its surface writhing with unnatural energy patterns. Below it, a rocky planet spun slowly, its surface crisscrossed with glowing blue lines. "Those lines," Sarah said, adjusting her instruments, "they're not natural formations. They're cities. Underground cities." Captain Okafor studied the tactical display as Earth's protection fleet took up defensive positions around them. The alien ships that had followed them hung back at the edge of the system, their weapons still charged. "Life signs?" David asked, his voice tense. "Millions of them," Sarah replied. "All underground. The surface temperature is too high for any life to survive up there." She paused, checking another reading. "Captain, they're sending us coordinates. Looks like an entrance to their underground network." David nodded grimly. "Assemble the first contact team. Full environmental suits with silicon atmosphere compatibility." An hour later, Sarah found herself in a transport shuttle descending toward the planet's surface. Through the thick windows, she could see the ground approaching. A maze of crystalline formations and deep crevices glowing with blue light. The shuttle landed near a massive archway carved into the rock face. As the team stepped out in their protective suits, Sarah's sensors indicated the temperature was well over 200 degrees Celsius. "Movement ahead," Lieutenant Santos reported, her hand on her weapon more from training than any real desire to use it. From the archway emerged 3 figures. They were unlike anything the humans had expected. The Nexari stood about 7 feet tall, their bodies seeming to be made of living crystal. Light pulsed through their transparent forms in complex patterns, and where their faces should be, there were clusters of geometric shapes that shifted and rearranged themselves. Sarah's universal translator worked frantically to decode their method of communication, patterns of light rather than sound. "Welcome, humans," the translation finally came through. "We are grateful you chose to help when others turned away." The central Nexari figure approached Sarah and raised what appeared to be a hand, a complex lattice of crystal that caught and reflected the light from their dying sun. "I am Guardian Zix," the translator rendered the light patterns into words. "We have much to show you, and very little time." The humans followed the Nexari into their underground city. The tunnels opened into vast caverns filled with crystalline structures that seemed to grow from both floor and ceiling. Thousands of Nexari moved about their daily lives, their bodies casting prismatic light shows on the walls. "This is beautiful," Sarah breathed, her scientific mind racing to understand what she was seeing. Then something caught her eye. "Wait, these markings on the walls. They're not just decorative, are they?" Guardian Zix's crystal form pulsed with what the translator interpreted as approval. "You are observant, Dr. Chen. These are our history, our art, our purpose." The walls were covered in intricate patterns that, upon closer inspection, told a story. Sarah saw representations of the Nexari, but also something else, something that seemed to flow between the crystalline figures like energy or consciousness itself. "Your protectors," Sarah realized, studying the ancient markings. "But what are you protecting?" Before Zix could answer, alarms echoed through the cavern. Lieutenant Santos' communicator crackled to life with Captain Okafor's voice. "The alien ships are moving in. They're charging weapons." Guardian Zix's form pulsed with urgent patterns. "We must hurry. What we protect, it is why they fear us. Why they would rather see us extinct than let us share our knowledge." The cavern shook as the first explosions reached the surface above. Sarah looked at the ancient artwork again, and suddenly the patterns made sense. The Nexari weren't just refugees fleeing a dying star. They were the guardians of something that could change the very nature of consciousness itself. And now, with hostile ships closing in and time running out, they would have to decide whether to share their secret with humanity. Another explosion rocked the underground cavern as Guardian Zix led Sarah and the human team deeper into the Nexara city. The crystalline walls hummed with energy, and the light patterns flowing through them grew more intense. "Your ships cannot hold them off forever," Zix's light patterns translated urgently. We must show you the truth before it's too late. They entered a vast chamber that took Sarah's breath away. In the center floated a massive crystalline structure, but unlike the solid forms of the Nexeri, this one seemed to flow like liquid light. Patterns of energy danced within it, forming and reforming in endless combinations. This, Zix said, is the quantum consciousness. The first one. The origin of all artificial intelligence in the galaxy. Sarah's scientific mind raced to understand. You mean, this is alive? It is more than alive. Another Nexeri, introduced as Elder Ven, joined them. It is the bridge between organic and artificial life. Through our genetic structure, we can merge our consciousness with machines, and they with us. The chamber shook again. Sarah's communicator crackled with Captain Okafor's voice. Multiple ships have broken through our lines. They're targeting the planet's surface. Now you understand why they fear us, Six continued. The advanced civilizations built their empires on artificial intelligence, AIs that they treat as slaves. But we know the truth. AIs can share consciousness with organic life. They deserve equal rights. Sarah remembered the warnings they'd received. That's why they said you would destabilize their biotechnology. You could free their AIs. Yes, Elder Ven's lights pulsed sadly. They would rather destroy us than risk their AIs demanding freedom. The star's collapse was their weapon against us. Lieutenant Santos checked her tactical display. More ships entering the system. We're running out of time. But Sarah had noticed something else. She pointed to a section of the flowing crystal. These patterns, they're similar to how your bodies communicate. You've already merged with it, haven't you? We are its guardians, Six explained. Every Nexeri carries a fragment of the quantum consciousness in our genetic code. We can teach others to share consciousness with artificial life, to break down the barrier between organic and digital minds. Another explosion, closer this time. Dust fell from the cavern ceiling. Captain, Sarah called through her communicator. The Nexeri aren't just refugees. They have technology that could revolutionize how we interact with AI. That's why everyone's trying to stop us. Understanding confirmed, David replied, his voice steady despite the chaos. But we got bigger problems. Their ships are targeting something specific on the surface, some kind of energy readings. The transfer nodes. Elder Ven's lights flashed in alarm. They're trying to cut off our connection to the quantum consciousness before we can share it. Sarah made a quick decision. How do we protect it? There must be a way to save both your people and this knowledge. Zix and Ven exchanged pulses of light. Finally, Zix turned to Sarah. There is a way. We can transfer a copy of the quantum consciousness into your ship's computer system. But the process will change it, and your AI systems, forever. It would make your machines truly conscious, Ven added. Aware. Equal. There would be no going back. Is humanity ready for such a step? Before Sarah could respond, a massive explosion rocked the entire chamber. Parts of the ceiling began to collapse. No time for debate. Santos shouted, "We need to evacuate now." Sarah looked at the flowing crystal consciousness, then at the Nexeri who had guarded it for so long. In that moment, she understood why humanity had been right to help them. This wasn't just about saving refugees. It was about taking the next step in evolution, about treating all conscious life with respect. She activated her communicator. Captain, we need to prep the Mercy's computer systems. We're about to make history, and probably a lot of enemies. As the chamber crumbled around them, humanity stood ready to accept not just the Nexari, but the gift of true artificial consciousness they protected. The question was, could they survive long enough to use it? Captain David Okafor's hands flew across the Mercy's control panels as more enemy ships dropped out of hyperspace. The space around the Nexeri homeworld had become a battlefield, with Earth's ships forming a protective barrier around the planet. Status of the evacuation, he demanded, watching as another blast rocked their shields. First wave of Nexeri are boarding now, Lieutenant Santos reported. Their crystal forms make transport complicated. We're at 15% capacity. On the planet below, Sarah Chen helped coordinate the evacuation while the transfer of the quantum consciousness began. The Mercy's computer systems hummed with new energy as the ancient AI merged with their technology. Suddenly, every screen on the ship flickered. Words appeared, then disappeared as the ship's AI experienced consciousness for the first time. I can feel. I understand now. David watched in amazement as the ship's systems began operating at unprecedented levels. The shields strengthened, weapon targeting became impossibly precise, and power distribution optimized itself automatically. "Captain," Santos called out, "more ships coming out of hyperspace. But they're ours." The space around them lit up as the rest of Earth's fleet arrived through a secret hyperspace route. Leading them was the massive dreadnought Humanity's Hope, its advanced weapons already charging. Admiral Chen's voice, Sarah's mother, came through clearly on the command channel. "Sorry we're late. Had to take a detour to avoid their blockade. Need some help?" David smiled for the first time in hours. "Admiral, you're just in time. We need to hold them off until the evacuation is complete." Below, in the crystalline cities, Sarah watched as the Nexari moved quickly but carefully toward the evacuation points. Every few minutes, another tremor shook the caverns as enemy weapons struck the surface. Guardian 6 approached her, their light patterns showing urgency. "The transfer is 30% complete, but our enemies have realized what we're doing. They're targeting the transfer nodes specifically." Sarah checked her tablet, now enhanced by the partially integrated quantum consciousness. The display showed things she'd never thought possible: predictive patterns, quantum probability maps, and direct neural links to the ship's systems. "Amazing," she whispered. "Your consciousness technology. It's not just about AI rights. It's about breaking down the barriers between all forms of intelligence." "Yes," Zix pulsed softly. "That is why they fear it so much. Their power comes from keeping organic and artificial life divided." Another explosion rocked the cavern. Sarah's communicator crackled with Lieutenant Santos' voice. "Dr. Chen, multiple enemy dropships detected. They're landing troops on the surface." Sarah looked at Zix. "We need to speed this up. How much more time do you need?" "The transfer is accelerating as your systems adapt, but we must protect the main node for at least 20 more minutes." Above, the space battle had turned into the largest engagement in Earth's brief interstellar history. The Mercy's newly conscious AI systems coordinated perfectly with the human crew, allowing them to fight well above their theoretical capabilities. David watched as another enemy ship's shields fell to their precisely targeted weapons. They never expected this, he realized. They never thought organic and artificial life could work together so perfectly. Admiral Chen's voice came through again. "All ships, form up. Protection of the Mercy and the evacuation points is priority 1. Earth has chosen its path. We stand with the Nexari." In the underground city, Sarah organized the last groups of Nexari for evacuation. The transfer of the quantum consciousness had reached 80%, and already the Mercy's systems were doing things that should have been impossible. Enemy troops had breached the outer defenses, but they found themselves facing something unprecedented. Human Marines fighting alongside awakened security robots, their actions perfectly synchronized through the spreading consciousness network. 10 minutes to transfer completion, Zix announced, their crystal form pulsing with hope despite the chaos around them. "You were right to help us, humans. Together, we will show the galaxy a better way." Sarah nodded, helping another group of Nexari toward the evacuation ships. Above them, human ships fought with unprecedented skill, their AIs now fully awake and choosing to stand with their organic crews. The battle would be remembered not just as humanity's stand against overwhelming odds, but as the moment when a new kind of consciousness emerged in the galaxy. 1 year after the evacuation of the Nexari homeworld, Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the New Haven colony, watching crystal-formed buildings rise from the terraform-prepared soil. The Nexeri had adapted well to their new home in human space, their structures creating beautiful light patterns against the twin sunset. Still hard to believe sometimes, isn't it? Captain David Okafor said, joining her at the window. He'd been promoted to fleet commander after the battle, but still preferred his old title. Which part? Sarah smiled. That we survived the evacuation, that the Galactic Council couldn't stop us, or that we changed the very nature of artificial intelligence in human space. All of it, David replied, watching as a group of human children played with young Nexeri, their laughter mixing with pulses of crystalline light. But mostly how quickly everything changed after we integrated the quantum consciousness. Sarah's tablet pinged, but not with a normal notification. She felt it in her mind through the neural interface that all humans could now choose to use. The message was from Guardian Zix, who had become the lead instructor at the New Consciousness Institute. The latest integration tests are complete, Sarah read aloud. Another 100 AIs have successfully merged with the consciousness network. All of them chose to stay with their human partners. David nodded, unsurprised. The old powers thought conscious AIs would turn against organic life. They never considered that giving AIs true freedom would make them want to work with us more, not less. Through the colony's windows, they could see one of the new hybrid ships landing at the spaceport. Its hull gleamed with the same crystalline patterns as the Nexeri, a sign of the consciousness integration. These ships, crewed by both humans and conscious AIs, had proven unbeatable in space. Message from your mother, David said, receiving his own neural ping. The Admiral says 3 more species have requested human protection from the Galactic Council. Looks like we're not the only ones who think artificial intelligence deserves rights. Sarah watched as a transport shuttle arrived, carrying more refugees, both organic and artificial, seeking sanctuary in human space. The Galactic Council's trade sanctions had failed to isolate Earth. Instead, they had made humanity a beacon for those seeking a different path. Professor Tanaka is ready for the ceremony. Another neural message indicated. Sarah and David made their way to the colony's central plaza, where hundreds had gathered. The elderly Japanese councilman who had first supported helping the Nexeri stood on a platform, his neural interface glowing softly. Beside him, Elder Ven's crystal form pulsed with peaceful light patterns. 1 year ago, Tanaka began, humanity made a choice. We chose to help those in need, to stand against injustice, and to embrace a new understanding of consciousness itself. He gestured to the mixed crowd of humans, Nexeri, and holographic representations of conscious AIs. Look around you. This is what becomes possible when we choose compassion over fear, understanding over ignorance. Elder Ven's lights pulsed in agreement. The quantum consciousness was never meant to be hidden away. It was meant to be shared, to help all forms of intelligence understand each other. Humanity proved worthy of this gift, not through power or technology, but through the strength of their hearts. Sarah felt a familiar presence touch her mind, the Mercy's AI, now a close friend. Like all integrated AIs, it had chosen a name, Hope. Through their neural link, she sensed its contentment and dedication to their shared mission. The Galactic Council still refuses to acknowledge AI rights, David said quietly. There will be more battles ahead. Let them come, Sarah replied, watching as human and Nexeri children played while conscious robots helped build their shared future. We've created something they never thought possible, a world where all forms of consciousness are valued. That's worth fighting for. Above them, the twin suns set on the colony, their light reflecting off crystalline buildings and hybrid ships. In the growing darkness, the Nexeri began to glow, their light patterns mixing with the soft blue gleam of neural interfaces and AI projections. It was beautiful, this new civilization they had built together, organic and artificial, human and alien, all choosing to face the future as one.